Welcome, dear adventurers, to a deep exploration of one of the most fearsome creatures ever to roam the lands of Middle-earth dragons. These legendary beings, born of fire and greed, loom large in J.R.R. Tolkien's epic stories, from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit. Known for their ferocity, intelligence, and destructive power, dragons were the terrifying creations of Morgoth, the first Dark Lord of Middle-earth. But how exactly did dragons come into existence? Were they created by Morgoth himself, or were they something far older and darker? Today, we'll delve into their origins, explore their evolution, and uncover the dark magic that made them one of the most iconic and dangerous forces in Tolkien's world. Let's begin our journey by stepping back to the origins of Middle-earth, where the seeds of their genesis were sown. The creation of Middle-earth and the role of the secret fire. To truly understand the dragons of Middle-earth, we must first begin with the creation of the world itself. In Tolkien's mythology, the world of Arda, the earth, was brought into being by Eru Ilúvatar, the supreme deity who created the Ainur, a group of powerful spirits. These Ainur sang the great music, the Ainulindale, that shaped the universe, with each note reflecting Ilúvatar's divine vision. Central to this creation was the secret fire, also known as the flame imperishable. This mysterious force represented the essence of life and creation, held only by Ilúvatar. No other being, not even the most powerful Ainur, could wield it. Only Ilúvatar had the power to create life and endow beings with free will. This distinction is crucial because it set limits on what even the mightiest spirits could achieve, including Melkor, the most rebellious and powerful of the Ainur. Melkor, later known as Morgoth, was driven by envy and lust for power. He longed to possess the secret fire, to create life independently, and to impose his will on the world. However, he could not, for only Ilúvatar had that ability. Thus, Melkor's creative power was inherently flawed. He couldn't create entirely new forms of life. Instead, he could only corrupt and pervert what already existed in Arda. This desire to dominate, control, and corrupt would define Melkor's actions throughout the ages and ultimately lead to the creation of dragons. Melkor's fall and the corruption of Arda. Melkor's jealousy and desire for power eventually caused him to rebel against Ilúvatar. After the world was shaped, Melkor descended into it, determined to dominate and rule. However, he quickly realized that while he could not create life, he could corrupt it. This became a central theme of his reign. He would take the creations of others and twist them into dark, monstrous forms that reflected his own malevolence. Melkor spread his influence far and wide across Middle-earth. He tainted the land, perverted its creatures, and gathered many dark forces to his side. Among these forces were Balrogs, corrupted Maiar spirits of fire, who became his fiercest and most loyal servants. But Melkor desired more than just followers. He sought to craft his own monstrous creations, something that would strike fear into the hearts of all who opposed him. The first of these creations to emerge was the dragon, a beast that embodied both Melkor's greed and his destructive nature. The first dragon, Glaurung. The first known dragon in Tolkien's legendarium was Glaurung, often referred to as the father of dragons. Glaurung made his appearance during the First Age, unleashed by Morgoth during the long and bitter wars between the Dark Lord and the free peoples of Middle-earth. What made Glaurung truly fearsome wasn't just his immense size or physical strength, but his cunning intelligence and powerful, malicious mind. Unlike the dragons that would come later, Glaurung was flightless. He crawled on the ground like a serpent, but his lack of wings did not make him any less terrifying. His ability to breathe fire, along with his immense strength, made him a devastating force in battle. However, what set him apart even more was his psychological warfare. Glaurung could manipulate and deceive those who crossed his path. His ability to weave illusions and create despair in the minds of his enemies was one of his most dangerous powers. This manipulation is most evident in the tragic tale of Turin Turambar, one of the greatest but most ill-fated heroes of Middle-earth. Glaurung played a pivotal role in Turin's downfall, using his mental abilities to curse Turin and his family, leading to one of the most heartbreaking tragedies in all of Tolkien's works. Glaurung's characteristics: flightless, he couldn't fly, making him distinct from later dragons. Like all dragons, he could unleash torrents of fire, laying waste to armies and strongholds. Psychological power: his mental manipulation abilities made him a master of deception and despair. In Glaurung, we see the first manifestation of Melkor's twisted creativity. Although he could not create life in the way Ilúvatar could, Melkor had succeeded in corrupting a creature into something monstrous. He was a weapon of fear, both physically and psychologically. The evolution of dragons, from Glaurung to Ancalagon. After his initial reign of terror, Melkor refined his designs, creating dragons that were even more fearsome and versatile. By the time of the War of Wrath, the final great conflict of the First Age, Morgoth had perfected his creation, unleashing winged dragons, the most destructive forces Middle-earth had ever seen. The most famous of these winged dragons was Ancalagon the Black, a beast of unimaginable size and power. Ancalagon was the largest and most terrifying dragon to ever exist, described as being so massive that his fall crushed the mountain peaks of Thangorodrim when he was finally defeated. With his vast wingspan, ability to rain down fiery destruction from the skies, and sheer physical might, Ancalagon represented the pinnacle of Morgoth's ability to corrupt life. Winged dragons versus flightless dragons. Glaurung, being flightless, relied on his ground strength and psychological warfare. Winged dragons, like Ancalagon, were capable of aerial assaults, using their ability to fly as a strategic advantage in battle. They could lay waste to entire armies from the skies. The appearance of winged dragons in the War of Wrath marked the height of Morgoth's power, but it also signaled the beginning of his end. Ancalagon was eventually defeated by Erendil and the forces of the Valar, and his death symbolized the fall of Morgoth's reign of terror in Middle-earth. Dragons in the Second and Third Ages. The Scourge of Smaug. Though Morgoth was defeated at the end of the First Age, his creations, the dragons, continued to terrorize Middle-earth in the following ages. Over time, they became less connected to Morgoth's direct influence and more independent agents of chaos and destruction. One of the most famous dragons of the later ages was Smaug, the primary antagonist in The Hobbit. Smaug was a fire-breathing dragon of the Third Age who laid waste to the kingdom of Erebor and claimed the Lonely Mountain as his own. While Smaug may not have been as massive or powerful as Ancalagon, he was still an incredibly dangerous and cunning creature. Smaug embodied many of the core traits of Tolkien's dragons. Greed. Smaug was driven by his lust for gold and treasures, hoarding the wealth of Erebor and sleeping atop it like a mountain of riches. Cunning. Like Glaurung, Smaug was intelligent and manipulative. His conversation with Bilbo in The Hobbit demonstrates his sharp wit and dangerous intellect. Destruction. Smaug's fire-breathing ability allowed him to lay waste to cities and armies with ease, as seen in his attack on Lake Town. Though Smaug was eventually slain by Bard the Bowman, his presence in the story serves as a reminder of the lasting legacy of Morgoth's corruption. Even in the Third Age, long after Morgoth's defeat, the dragons he unleashed continued to haunt Middle-earth. Theories on the origins of dragons. Tolkien leaves the origins of dragons somewhat ambiguous, and fans have long speculated about how they came into being. Were they once animals, corrupted by Morgoth, or were they created from something else entirely? Let's explore some of the most prominent theories about the genesis of dragons in Middle-earth. 1. The corruption of animals theory. One of the simplest theories about the origins of dragons is that Morgoth took existing animals and corrupted them into monstrous forms. Given his inability to create life, this theory holds that Morgoth twisted creatures native to Arda, such as large reptiles or birds, into the first dragons. This would align with Tolkien's overarching theme of evil being incapable of creating life, only corrupting it. However, there are some holes in this theory. Dragons, particularly Glaurung, are depicted as having not only immense physical power, but also vast intelligence and the ability to manipulate the minds of others. This suggests that they were more than just corrupted animals. There may have been a deeper spiritual corruption at play. 2. The corrupted Maiar theory. Another popular theory is that dragons were once Maiar powerful spiritual beings who, like Sauron and the Balrogs, were seduced and corrupted by Morgoth. This would explain dragons' immense intelligence and magical abilities, as well as their sheer destructive power. If dragons were indeed fallen Maiar, this would place them in the same category as the Balrogs, and their origin would be tied more closely to Morgoth's corruption of spiritual beings. However, Tolkien never confirms this in his writings, leaving the question of whether dragons possess a spiritual origin an open mystery. 3. The elemental force theory. A final, more abstract theory is that dragons were born from the very corruption of Arda itself. When Morgoth poured his malice into the world, he tainted not just its creatures, but its very essence. In this theory, dragons are seen as elemental forces of destruction, manifestations of Morgoth's hatred made flesh. This theory aligns with Tolkien's description of dragons as being both creatures of fire and greed, embodying the two things Morgoth valued most: destruction and control. It also explains why dragons, even after Morgoth's defeat, continued to thrive in the dark places of Middle-earth, because they were not just creatures, but embodiments of corruption itself. From the dark days of Glaurung's terror to the fiery destruction wrought by Smaug, dragons in Middle-earth serve as a powerful symbol of corruption, greed, and destruction. Created by Morgoth's malice, These creatures were born from the darkest desires of domination and fear, and they played pivotal roles in shaping the history of Middle-earth. Though they were eventually defeated, the dragons of Tolkien's legendarium remain among the most iconic and feared beings in the history of fantasy literature. Their legacy, much like the evil from which they were born, will forever linger in the hearts and minds of those who read these epic tales. So the next time you hear the thunderous roar of a dragon in the distance, remember, you are hearing the echoes of a darkness that stretches back to the very beginning of Middle-earth itself. Hidden Kingdom signing off.